important components. Next, we have Emily Schrader from the Tel Aviv Institute. Emily?
Hi, so good afternoon from here in Israel. First off, I want to thank Member of Knesset MK Cotler-Wunsh for inviting me to share a few words on this really important issue. My name is Emily Schrader. I'm a research fellow that examines online anti-Semitism at the Tel Aviv Institute. I also own a digital marketing company called Socialite Creative, which primarily focuses on special campaigns related to Israel and the Jewish community. I've been operating in the field for about 10 years, and I've seen the trends of online anti-Semitism as they crop up, specifically in Arabic and in English. In the last year, activists such as myself and a large coalition of organizations have lobbied for social media networks to adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism as a framework for proactively identifying and noting hate speech. Note that I don't advocate censorship or banning, but rather using these platforms as a tool to educate about anti-Semitism. Now, while most of the networks have paid lip service to the IHRA definition in one way or the other, and positive steps have been taken, such as Facebook banning Holocaust denial, the networks have really skirted around adopting the definition in full because it correctly notes that the modern manifestation of anti-Semitism includes the demonization of Zionists, which far too often is used as a replacement word for Jews. Not including the singling out of Jews in its modern form on social media obviously can be hugely problematic. Additionally, Facebook and Twitter have implemented measures to combat the rise of white supremacist activity in recent months, but then when they're tried and tested, we see research showing that the measures are not only ineffective, but in fact, the social media network's algorithms actually promote showing more extremist content as it favors what the user's interests are. So this is something that obviously needs to change. As members of this important interparliamentary task force, I think that you as members of Congress, members of Parliament, and members of Knesset are uniquely positioned to help move this issue forward, as combating online anti-Semitism and really all forms of hate is an issue that has no borders. The governments of our respective countries have the ability to demand from social media networks such as Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok that they take the issue of rising anti-Semitism and all forms of online hate seriously and deal with it in a way that doesn't allow hate speech to proliferate. I recommend that each platform create a mechanism that requires users who post anti-Semitic content to flag that content and to provide educational resources about why this is considered anti-Semitic by the consensus Jewish community, which is what the IHRA definition is. This should be done with civil society and with government, ideally. Additionally, they must be held accountable legally to prove that these measures work in a reasonable timeline and not just talk about how they do them. That, of course, includes educating about classical anti-Semitism, such as blood libels, but also modern anti-Semitism, such as using the word Zionism to replace Judaism or Jews. Most recently, we saw this with the coronavirus, with tweets and posts claiming that Zionists created the virus, and content such as this is really par for the course for Twitter, Facebook, and even TikTok. It's very important that these social media networks also understand that this content is more problematic in Arabic, as there's widespread misinformation and incitement online, and this impacts all of our countries as well. Yet due to the language barriers, this has really been neglected over the past decade, and we have to address it seriously if we're going to tackle online anti-Semitism today. As an Israeli and as an American, I want to thank you all for the important work that you're doing and urge you to continue speaking up, not only for the Jewish community, but for all the communities that experience this kind of hate online. And I think that together we can really do something and make an effective change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. And you raised something very important. We're also at a historic junction that brings alongside it the opportunity, the Abraham Accords. And really, we saw Bahrain adopt, not officially, not the country, but we saw in Bahrain an adoption of the IHRA working definition for anti-Semitism. There is a tremendous opportunity, and we have to create the mechanisms, of course, to enable the educational piece, the compartment of, that really has to focus on education with regards to anti-Semitism in Arabic as well. That is a tremendous and a very important point made. I'm going to ask Anthony to run a bit of a very short session. We don't have that much time left of possible questions that task force members may have. And Anthony, if we can just let Debbie ask her question first, because she's going to have to hop off into a meeting, that'll be terrific. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to wrap this up on time, which is 8 minutes. So Debbie floor is yours. And by the way, good luck in the appropriations chair vote next week.
Thank you. That's why I have to hop off. So thank you so much. Just very briefly, perhaps Tomer and Danny and Danny can focus on. I'm really concerned about the Ayatollah and it's more than just the Holocaust denial and hatred. I mean, he's advocated genocide, beyond just wiping Israel off the map. I mean, he has tweeted items like that there should be another genocide. And so I'm on the one hand, you have these platforms that are saying that they ban their hate speech, but yet allow him to have a profile on their platform. And so what have your organizations been doing to combat the Ayatollah's presence on social media? Has the Israeli government continued to press Twitter on their reasoning? And what more can the US do? We have passed legislation out of the House that Ted and I are co-sponsors of to expand Holocaust education, because it's, we have 2/3 of the US that believes that the Holocaust might not have actually occurred. So we really have to start to address this problem much more aggressively, or it's going to get worse.
Danny, would you want to start, or I can?
Which one?
Yeah, I don't know which Danny you wanted. I can give you one word, and that maybe Danny can give you two lines. But my word.
Danny Morris from Community Security Trust.
Fine.
Danny, what's your one word?
Just that the engagement with the social media companies has been key. David Icke was banned, I believe, because we raised it with Facebook. They had no idea who he was, and we raised it with them in a conversation, embarrassed them in front of a group of NGOs by raising it. And so I think that the engagement with the social media platforms is pretty key.
I would echo that. Essentially, we've engaged with the social media companies from the very start. And as an organization, we have what's called a trusted flagger status, meaning that when we highlight content to the social media companies, it gets prioritized, largely because of that relationship we've built up, and because the companies recognize us as experts when it comes particularly to anti-Semitism. On your particular question, the only thing I would say is that the companies need to be enforcing their policies regardless of whoever's promoting the content online. So it doesn't matter if it's anonymous accounts or the leader of a country. If somebody is being seen to promote anti-Semitism that violates the community standards, the appropriate action should be taken. So that's what I'd say in response to that. And as Danny said, I think continued engagement and pressure on the social media companies to ensure that they're enforcing their policies as much as possible.
And forgive me, let me just correct myself. It's 2/3 of young Americans are either not aware of the Holocaust or, are not sure it actually occurred.
Tomer, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yes, we are also trusted flagger with the Twitter, YouTube, and many others. And we send them like every couple of weeks all the content that we monitored, because lots of the content is not removed, especially Holocaust denial and everything that's supposed to be like anti-Israeli content or anti-Zionism. And we send them by email, and then they remove more content. This is not necessarily the best way to work, but I believe that with this collaboration in the future, they will understand better also how to work. They need our feedback to better understand how to change and how to guide their workers in forcing the community standards or changing it. So this is the way we do it.
I would just like to add one thing. I know you didn't ask me the question, but
please.
I think another tool that's very useful is using the platforms themselves to expose when there are shortcomings or when they're not fulfilling their own community standards. I have many times posted on Twitter when Facebook said something that was anti-Semitic didn't violate their standards, and suddenly a day later it's removed. Obviously, as elected representatives, you have an excellent audience and opportunity to do that in a way that draws attention to this issue, which affects all of us, not just for anti-Semitism, but for hate against other groups as well. And I think that that is a great thing to do, and something that MK Cotler-Wunsh has done with the Ayatollah that you mentioned specifically. And while they haven't removed it yet, it's something that's in the press and that's being talked about, and the pressure is mounting, which is what needs to happen.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Emily.
It's just these efforts are all like pushing a boulder up a mountain. That's why we need regulatory policy across the globe. Thank you all so much, and look forward to seeing in the next one. Michal, thank you, Anthony, and all of our colleagues.
Thank you. Good luck, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you so much.